Okay, hello everybody, and welcome back to the Brainwave. Today we are here with Brady DeShong and special guest Eric Dupree.
Hey.
He and I went to high school together, and here we are 8 years after graduation, and we're still good friends. So I'm going to hand this over to Eric real quick so he can tell us a little bit about himself, what he does, and who he is.
I'm a patent illustrator, or a draftsman, and I draw inventors' patents. They'll send them into my office, and we have to draw them, no matter what it is. We draw all sorts of stuff. Different figures, figure 1, figure 2, with reference numbers that relate to their specifications that they have to write. And we have to make sure it's accurate, and we have to make sure it follows PTO rules, the Patent Trademark Office. And it's a fun job. It's interesting. You get a lot of cool stuff coming in. So yeah, that's what I do.
How did you get into doing that?
I was looking for graphic design jobs, and this was what was in demand. A lot of people making inventions. I was looking for something more of like, I don't know, any graphic design, like making flyers for the community college.
Yeah.
Making logos for people. I used to do freelancing for Twitch TV.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah, I actually did it for my brother, if you know Phil.
Yeah. That's cool.
That's, what is his name now? Captain Coach. If you guys are seeing him on, shout out to Captain Coach, my brother on Twitch. But yeah, I'm making some of his logos, and he also had previous channels that I would do logos for. I would make his buttons, I would make his intro and outro screens.
Yeah.
And I would make some people's YouTube channels, so they have YouTube banners and maybe like their intro, and I would do it for myself too. So after freelancing with that for a while, I would, I'm like, okay, I need a steadier job. I don't like freelancing.
Yeah.
Because people ask for some crazy stuff, like I'm just, and they need it now, and sometimes they don't give me enough information, and I'll give them something and they don't like it, and I'm just like, well, it makes me feel bad, and it's also annoying to do in general.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, I'm sick of this. So I needed a steady job that used my skills in Adobe Illustrator, and I used Photoshop in this job too. And so I was looking for these types of things in patent illustration. I work at Patents Inc. in Pikesville, Maryland. And they needed a lot of people. And when I joined, I joined with 3 other people, and only a few months after, they hired 3 more. It's a growing industry. Our office is growing, and apparently this is what's in demand. So that's how I found it. I found it online.
That's cool.
So what do you mean you joined with like 3 other people? Like they hired you on at the same time?
Right. We got hired at the same time.
So just a whole team of you all started it together?
Yeah.
Do you all do the same thing?
Basically, we more or less the same thing.
Just different projects. Or do
Right.
you ever work together?
We call them cases.
Okay.
But yeah, so the different cases are, people invent all sorts of crap. You get you get stuff that's like they'll start the new people on like flow charts, so you can invent a computer system where you have a box where the computer's in it, and then think of a flow chart, and then a box network, arrow to whatever, and like all these different arrows that leads to stuff. You can make electrical schematics. Those are kind of easy to do for newer people.
Damn. So you do a bit of everything.
Yeah, you have to know how to draw anything. But the hardest things, they're called design cases.
Mm-hmm.
And some of them are harder than others, but more often than not, design cases can be really, like, let's say somebody was designing you don't have a good reference around here, I don't know, a pillow. So you get a pillow, and it's not a schematic, it's not anything geometric with arrows and stuff. That stuff Adobe Illustrator can do really easily.
Yeah.
Is to make geometric stuff, but this is something organic. And you'd have to draw it in like every different
Oh,
Like
every different perspective around
right.
that object.
And then you'd have to do an isometric view.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to do a perspective view, which is different to draw because it's not parallel. It's
Right.
for anybody who knows about that kind of stuff. It's like perspective. It's definitely different to draw. So,
Well, it
again,
all depends on the perspective of the angle that you're looking at.
yeah, and
And you have to design all of those. So are you doing 3-dimensional imaging?
not necessarily. It's all
Okay.
in 2D,
Okay.
but you have to think 3D in order to draw it. Right. You have to have that in your mind in order to.
So you're designing images in a 2-dimensional form that's going to be in a 3-dimensional form. You have to think about that.
Yeah, like it's still on paper. It's still it has to be printable.
Right.
But absolutely, you need to think in 3D in order to draw the design cases. Again, these are like the hardest things you'd have to do. Not this pillow. This I could draw this in a couple hours. But like, let's say for example, a vacuum cleaner. Somebody makes well, because even that, our source material, they'd give us like a CAD scan, and sometimes when they give us CAD scans, you don't really have to draw most of it. It can be imported as a vector, which to those of you who don't know, a vector image is basically made of mathematical points. So you can have it's hard to describe a vector image. It's
Talking about vector imaging takes me back to high school.
Yeah,
I remember
God, because that's what we used to do.
that. Yeah,
Graphical
all the
design
time.
class.
Right.
Yeah, he and I sat next to each other
Oh, nice.
for 4 years of it.
Oh,
I
gosh.
failed my graphic communication class. Didn't do any work.
Really?
Yeah,
Really?
not proud of it, but that was freshman year. What are you gonna do?
Yeah, I mean, if you're not interested in it,
Yeah.
I'm the same way about history. I'm just like, oh, fuck.
History,
I
yes.
just want to do stuff. I don't care about it. I don't know. So yeah, like vectors are. It's easy to import vectors. It's just made of math. They're points that lead to each other, and it's not like Photoshop. It's not like a GIF, a JPEG image where it's just pixels.
Yeah.
Vector image is scalable. It's importable, and so we can take CAD vector. You can, if anybody who's familiar with CAD, which I'm not. Some of my friends do CAD. It's 3D stuff.
It's computer
Computer-aided design, drafting.
Design and drafting.
ADD.
Yeah,
I had to take a class for that
yeah,
Yeah.
it's
in college
CADD.
when I was majoring in GIS.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you get imports of that, and the vector is it's easy to draw off of because it just comes in. It just turns into a PDF, and
Okay.
you can just finish it up. But sometimes, going back to the design cases, this is not a good example. So you get like a case where it's not a vacuum cleaner, which is kind of geometric, and they give you the CAD for it. Let's think of okay. So one of the cases. One of my senior illustrators had the team leaders. One of my team leaders had to make a bra. Like somebody invented a bra, which I don't really know how you do that, but apparently you invent like a different kind of I don't know, padding or something.
I mean, there's bombshells and there's underwire. Clearly, I'm an expert
almost
on bras.
concerned that you know that. I'm almost concerned.
So in this, I was looking at the project file she was doing, and of course she was doing it at every angle.
Mhm.
She had to do it from the top to bottom, an isometric view. But she didn't have a prototype. A lot of times, if they don't send us the CAD, they'll send us a prototype. They'll send us, in this case, an actual bra. And now looking back at it, maybe I'm realizing why they didn't want to send us a bra. But usually we get a prototype. Like one time we had a prototype of like an egg thing, and so I can't get into details. I'm on a non-disclosure, so I can't tell you the specifics about anything. But I'm going to tell you basically. It was an easy way to cook eggs. It was a cool invention.
Mm-hmm.
It was an egg thing. And they sent us what it looked like because it had a lot of layers. It had things that you could take apart. And so they didn't have the CAD available.
Okay.
So they sent us this thing, and it's so much easier to draw if you have something to look
physical
at.
prototype.
Yeah, exactly. So
Okay.
you have to like be able to imagine in 3D, and a prototype definitely helps. But this is where the design cases come in. It's a lot harder to draw something from scratch just by looking at it in front of you instead of having to trace it, which is usually what you would do.
Okay.
You would put the image in, like, okay, here's our source material. It's a sloppy drawing, or it's a photograph. Sometimes they'll send us, and sometimes we'll take photographs of the prototype.
Yeah.
But if not, if it's a photograph or just like a crappy JPEG image of a schematic, you place it into Illustrator and you just trace it. It's easy.
Yeah.
But in this case, this is a design case. You have to do it from scratch, and this is the hardest part of my job, is the design cases. And I have not done many of them because I have only worked here for a year, actually. I'm not a senior. But some of these projects that our team leaders are doing, they're fantastic. We do really good work. We have some very talented people in here.
So you both physically draw sketches of whatever, and then you also do it on the computer?
We don't physically do it.
Okay, so it's computer-based only?
It's all computer-based.
Okay.
But we used to do it, and I say we as in before I had even worked there.
Okay.
The seniors are telling me stories of, back in the day we had this big drafting tables with you had to actually, the big things. You had like a little light on it, and I'm just like, wow.
Oh,
And
yeah!
that was only like 7 years ago that they had those.
Wow.
Don't quote me on that, because that sounds absurd. But they, 7 years ago, I remember.
It seems possible.
Like maybe they
2011?
weren't. Maybe they weren't doing only that.
Right.
But I think they still had those.
They were in the transition
They were in the
period.
transition. I think that's what it was,
Probably.
because I remember the 3 people that have worked there the longest, the 3 seniors have been working there for 7 years. So I think
Okay.
that's when the office became official. That's when the company became official.
Yeah.
And apparently they still had the physical drafting tables.
Yeah.
And I said, that's crazy. I can't imagine
Old school.
it's old school. So yeah, that was interesting. But no, when I joined, we're doing it all on the computer, because you can place anything. And again, the hardest thing is just the designs.
Yeah.
You just have to.
So
draw from
you
scratch.
you occasionally dabble in Photoshop.
Yeah. Yep.
Now, Illustrator I can understand. For people who don't know, like Eric was saying, Illustrator is vector-based. You don't deal with pixelation normally. I mean, you can rasterize an image, but that's a bad idea.
It's not usually what you do.
You wouldn't want to.
Yeah.
So what would you use Photoshop for?
So let's take a case where a biotech case. We get a lot of these.
Okay.
It's a type of the type of invention it is. It's not really an invention. It's kind of like I guess it has to be. It's a patent where they're patenting a what am I trying to say? They're patenting a chemical's effect on mice, like an effect of a chemical.
Okay.
And so we would have to draw like mice diagrams with arrows and that's something we can trace. But what if you have a graph that shows when this chemical activates in the bloodstream over a given period of time?
Wow.
So we have this very specific graph that has all these different layers and all of these different variables going through it. Sorry, Kat, I'm just trying to explain a graph. So you have these, it's just way too complicated graph. You don't want to trace it. So what you would do is you take it and you place it into Photoshop.
Yeah.
You'd put it in Photoshop, delete all the extra numbers and crap they have at the end, at the edges of it,
Yep.
and then put only the data into Illustrator, and then type the numbers
Okay.
in Illustrator to make it look more clean.
Yeah.
And so sometimes we'll use Photoshop for that, where you have these really like just complicated and messy things that need to stay exactly how they are, because you
Okay.
can't change the data.
Yeah.
Because the pattern is different.
And that
If
would
you
be
do
much easier to
You
do in
have to keep the
Photoshop.
data. Absolutely, it would be. It's so much easier in Photoshop.
Yeah.
Another thing you do in Photoshop is if you have a. So let's take a microscopic image of cells,
Okay.
where they take. Here's some cells. Here's some I don't know, lesions on them. I don't know enough about. I just draw them. Okay, I don't know what I'm drawing. Half the time I don't know what I'm drawing.
I thought you were a biology major.
Yeah, it's some of it's really cool, but I just don't know what it is. Sometimes I'm just like baffled. But it's really cool. Like you get images of cells where and whatever they're patenting, they're pointing to different things. Like there's just this excitation site of the cell. This is where whatever the patent is happening. This is where it happens. It points to it with like a reference number.
Mm-hmm.
When you get these these photos, they're really detailed. You don't want to trace them. It has to look exactly as it is. It has to look like the photo they did.
Right.
And people will ask for photos all the time. They'll say, keep these photos as they are. They need to look like photographs. Please don't retrace them. And I think most of the time they're microscopic, like cell images. And that is something that you put into Photoshop. You put that in Photoshop, get rid of all the crap around the sides, get rid of the data, get rid of the numbers, put the photo in, and re-add the data and the numbers around it for it to look clear. That's what we use Photoshop for.
So it's you're, oh my gosh, I can't think of the correct word for this. You are recreating an image. You're sharpening it. You're
basically sharpening what we can.
Right.
And sometimes we can't. Sometimes it's just such a sloppy photograph, we can't do anything about it. Okay, that's their fault. If they want to send in a low fidelity photograph,
right,
that's not our problem. Our job is just to put it in, make it look nice, make it acceptable for the Patent Trademark Office, PTO.
You'll clean it up as much.
We'll clean it up as much as we can.
Yeah. I was in a job many years ago where actually it was just outside of high school. I was a graphic designer, and people would bring in paintings that they had done, and I would have to, because our scanner wasn't big enough, so if their painting was way too big, we would scan like a section of it at a time to overlap it. I'd have to go back and make sure it's overlapping perfectly.
Oh yeah.
I would have to.
What if you screwed that up?
Then you're done for.
Yeah, you gotta.
You have to print like a test page of that to make sure that the color synchronization between the printer and the computer is accurate to the actual copy.
Right.
Like, it was terrible.
That sounds awful.
Yeah. It was. Like, one painting would be like a 2-3 week job, and you would have probably a good 50 copies that just you had to keep reprinting because you couldn't get the colors right.
Wow.
Yeah, that was terrible. I didn't last long there.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I was there for a good year and a half, but my boss was also a dick.
So Eric, just so to clarify for me, who's not huge into graphic design,
yeah, me and John are just going on.
Yeah, and so for maybe some of the people who don't understand, what designs are you drawing? Like, what are you trying to illustrate in these designs?
So it needs to be black and white in order for it to be reproducible. And that's the biggest thing, is everything needs to be black and white.
Is that for scanning purposes?
It's for clarity, so not even grays. Not even grayscale. It needs to be black or white.
Okay.
Unless it's a photograph, because sometimes you really just can't get away with doing black and white.
You're going to boost that contrast and it's going to look like
shit.
shit.
And sometimes we do. Sometimes we boost it as much as we can without it looking like crap.
Okay.
But anyway, we're going on a graphics tangent again. So what are you asking? What do we design?
When somebody sends in, do they send in like pictures of their inventions?
Sure, they send in plenty of stuff, but yeah, source image, pictures. Sometimes you get photographs of a guy, just I guess the inventor, just trying on a suit. Here's this. Sometimes like that. But no, so one of the things was. It's like designs and then utilities. Utilities is how something works. Designs is what it looks like in different areas and different perspectives. Okay. So utility, which is something I didn't touch on much, utilities can be anything. They're easier to draw. The schematics that I was talking about earlier, flowcharts, they're utilities. It's how something works. It's how a program works. It's how a computer works. Right. One utility that looked like a design was a series of 20 different figures, 20 different figures, ish, I don't remember the exact number, of a guy trying on a suit, and every figure was, hey, here's the suit. Figure 1, figure 2, figure 3, figure 4, figure 5, putting it on, figure 6, putting it on, figure 7, zipping it up, and figure 8, walking away with it, and the pose he had was really fun. He's just like, I'm just like, oh yeah, what does this guy do? He's having fun making this patent for us to draw. But it's good. So that would be a utility. Even though it looked like a design, it looked like something that's just like, oh geez, this is a whole shape that I have to do. Like drawing clothes, it's organic. Anybody who knows how to draw clothes, good for you. They're hard to draw. It's anything that's organic is always a challenge.
You'd have to get like the creases.
Oh yeah, I had to draw the pants, and it was I was tracing it so it was easier, so I knew where the creases were.
Yeah.
And so the challenge was picking what creases to keep and which ones were too much. Sometimes it's just like there's so many creases. Do you draw all of them?
It's like a spider web.
Yeah, you don't want to draw. It looks gross if it's like, because again, it's black and white.
Right.
And you have way too much black in like the crotch area. Like, why is there a spider web coming out of his crotch? That's how folds work. That's how it works. But I had to keep that out because it looked a little weird. I'm just like, I'm not trying to put a spider web on this guy's crotch. So, and those are the things that you have to balance at my job. So the other things I'll design is it really just depends. I guess to answer your question, it depends on what they send in, and some projects are just drastically harder than others.
Yeah.
Some people ask for ridiculous things, and the more I've worked here recently, I'm finding we have to email or even phone call the client more often than when I started. We have to be like, okay, I'm sorry, I don't understand what you mean by what you're like. They'll send us a figure, for example. They'll send us like blah blah blah. This figure. This is right, but they'll put like a little note and pen on it. And this figure, make sure you add this shape, make sure it connects to this, make sure that these are the same size, even though I didn't draw them correctly. And sometimes they'll admit, I know I have chicken scratch. Like it's really funny. Sometimes the clients will write, please ignore my chicken scratch. I know I'm really bad at drawing. That's why it's actually really funny sometimes. But and we'll get these notes, but sometimes I won't understand them. Just literally because their handwriting is bad. I'm like, I don't know what you wrote. But sometimes I know what they wrote, but I just don't understand what they're trying to get me to do. So we'll have to phone call them. We'll have to be like, what do you want me to draw? Do you need this in grayscale? Do you need these shapes to be rounded? Do you whatever? Do you need me to follow the font that you're using? Do you need me to follow the font size that you're using? And I should warn you, and we do this a lot, we'll warn the clients that say, you said you wanted us to do this, but I have to warn you, the PTO, Patent Trademark Office, usually doesn't accept this, and if we give you these drawings and you send in this patent, it might get rejected, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. They can take it back, and they have it's called an invitation to correct objections.
It's like a resubmission.
Yeah, it's a resubmission invitation, and they can do it after 3 months, 6 months, I don't know.
That's not bad.
Something like that. Yeah, it's not a big deal, and sometimes people will literally just put in chicken scratch drawings just so they can get a invitation to correct defects.
Oh,
just because they just want it in the system, so people know that it's there, and they're like, okay, I know you're going to reject it, just give it back to me so I can get an illustrator to do it.
So that way they're on the calendar.
Exactly. Right. Sometimes they'll do that, and
that's cheap.
It kind of shortcuts their
it's
way
a good
in.
idea. Yeah, if they have the idea, go ahead and get it out and draw it when you can. You have a couple months to do it. And so we'll get these, and sometimes we'll get cases that already were objected to, and the client request is to honor the rejections from the PTO. Please honor these rejections. That would be in their client email. So we would take their drawings and we would be like, okay, well, these fonts are missed. These fonts are crappy. This doesn't make sense. This isn't legal. I can't read this text. Just everywhere. There's so many rules. There's a lot of stuff that goes into this job, and so every case is different. And some of them, I did a case that was estimated for. So there's like estimates. We have an estimating department that says, looks at it real quick. Okay, this will take you about 2 hours. This will take you like 10 hours. This will take you freaking 80 hours. Maybe you need some extra people on it. I'm gonna send you some help on this.
Real quick, how accurate are they typically about estimating the time frame?
When they're low, they're more accurate.
Okay,
it does make sense. It's an 80-hour case estimated. Yeah. It could be 60 hours. It could be 100 hours.
Yeah.
But a 15-minute case. If somebody thinks something is going to take 15 minutes, it's probably going to take 15 minutes. Yeah. It's probably going to take 10 minutes, whatever. So
it all depends on the complexity of it.
It all depends on and sometimes the estimates are really off, and I'll tell my boss this estimate was off because of reasons A, B, and C. Can you give me a little leeway on this? And usually he'll be like, yeah, I understand.
Okay. Well, that's cool.
Yeah, I really like my job. I really like who I work with.
Perfect.
We're a bunch of really smart people. We easy to talk to. We're easy to get along with, and we work together. So
it's probably the biggest thing.
Yeah, we work together very well. And when you get these big cases that are estimated for 80 hours, you need that.
Yeah.
You need somebody to manage it, to be... and I manage cases. I'm not a case manager. It's not like a... It's just something everybody has to do every once in a while. Like, okay,
Right.
I'm going to put you in assigned of this case.
Okay.
So, and I say this because I recently had an 80-hour case that I was managing. And I'm not going to draw all that because it was due in 3 days. Like, I only work 8 hours a week. I mean, 8 hours a day. And I can't do that. It's impossible. So I have to get other people and say, okay, you need to work on figs 6 through 10. You're going to work on 11 through 15.
Mm-hmm.
You're new. You're a new person, so I'm going to put you on these figs where they're only flow charts.
Okay.
But I need. You're a senior, and I know you've been here a while. So can you do this one really complicated figure for me?
Mm-hmm.
So those are the kinds of things you have to give people. You have to play to people's strengths.
Yeah.
And that's definitely something I learned in this job. So yeah, cases are all over the place, and it will take any number of techniques to get it drawn.
Cool.
Just have to get it drawn in any way you can.
All right. So I got a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
The company that you work for, do other companies reach out to you guys, or do clients contact you directly? Like, if somebody wants something invented, do they hand this stuff to you?
Rarely.
Rarely. Okay.
Most of the time they go through an intellectual property law firm.
Okay. Can you explain that to me? Because I haven't a clue what that is.
It's... I don't know if I'm going to give you the definition as much justice as my boss would,
Okay.
but it's basically...
Just a generic idea is fine.
Yeah, I'll give you a generic idea. It's basically a group who organizes people's inventions. They are a law firm that knows patent law.
Okay.
We know patent law too,
Yeah.
but we know it on the illustration side. We know how to make an illustration acceptable for the
Okay.
PTO. They know how to do all of it,
Okay.
but they don't know how to draw.
Right.
We draw them. So I don't think I'm allowed to say any names of
That's fine.
our clients, but we have we get a. I just wish I could say his name. I just have to use pronouns, not
It's
his.
okay.
I want to use their names. And so we have a firm, a law firm, that, as an example, and all of them do this.
Mhm.
As an example, we have a law firm that takes people's inventions and says, this, and this is wrong in your specifications, which is not something that we don't do the specifications. We don't do the paragraphs of, when you go into figure
Yeah.
2A, on reference number 101, this piece is illustrated, and it connects to reference number 105. And they write all of that for pages and pages there, and sometimes they send us that as source material. Anyway, and we don't usually read that unless something's really, really complicated. We're like, what am I looking at?
Okay.
1 out of 20 times I have to look at the specs and like, what am I doing? I don't understand what I'm looking at.
Yeah.
But no, well, we usually don't deal with the specs. But the intellectual property law firm has to do everything. They have to make sure that their patent is legal,
Mhm.
and they are kind of the middleman. They make it all happen. But one step of their process is to draw them, to make sure the drawings are right, which is where we come in. We make that part easier for them.
Okay.
So they can worry about the specs and the legal crap and everything else. I don't know.
Yeah.
So we do that, but they're kind of the person who they're the people who catalyze it. They're the people who make it happen. They're the
Okay.
people who send it out. They're the people who receive it from the inventors,
Yeah.
who really want to get their thing onto the market, to
Yep.
get their ideas out, and they trust an intellectual property law firm to get it done for them
Gotcha.
and do it legally.
Yeah. So that was my next question, and I've got like another one or two after that too.
Okay, good.
I'm chock full of them.
Awesome.
You have mentioned multiple times if you can legally design something or not, or just legally make up the artwork for it. What do you mean by legally? Like, what would make something legal or illegal to work on.
We'll constitute.
So you're not going to go to jail for giving them.
Oh well, no, I'm not saying that.
Right. So it's more like what's acceptable. So what we have is a PCT, a Patent Cooperation Treaty, and it's a big list of things that patents around the world need to abide by for them to be consistent, and so that you don't look at a patent from another country and be like, what? So let's take, for example, one rule out of hundreds. There's so many things that the Patent Cooperation Treaty requires.
Mm-hmm.
One rule is, do you guys know what that's not the right, I'm thinking of an exploded view. No, an expanded view where you have a diagram that shows something, and then you have a little circle in that diagram that zooms out to like a zoom-in view, like a magnifying glass, and it says, this is an enlarged version. This is an enlarged version of this.
I see it in instruction manuals when I'm building all this damn furniture. It's like, this is where to put the screw.
Oh my god, when you're making when you make Lego sets. Oh, I missed Legos. Yeah, it's like that. So, as an example, you are not supposed to have the enlarged view of a drawing in the same figure. Let's say you have figure 1 is a vacuum cleaner again. Let's say you have a circle that enlarges to a bigger circle that says, in this part of this vacuum cleaner, here is a little like a cross section of it. Here is a zoomed in version of, here are like some parts working with reference numbers, which the specs are referencing to. This is part 101. This is part 200. This is part 205. And so you need the enlarged view sometimes to do that.
Right.
One of the PCT rules, again, Patent Cooperation Treaty, one of the rules is that you can't have the enlarged view and the regular view in the same figure. The enlarged view needs to be a different figure.
Really?
So instead of having figure 1 is this thing, also it's enlarged, figure 1 is the vacuum cleaner. Figure 2 is the enlarged view.
Okay.
That's one of the rules.
Huh.
So just to give you an example, that is one of hundreds of different things that you need to keep consistent no matter what country you're in. To have patents be understandable as a kind of like a patent reading language. No matter where you are. It's kind of a language. It's kind of like I know what this is. I know what they mean because I've seen another patent like this that uses the same tool to describe it. And so that is our job.
That's wild.
When I say it's legal, I mean it just needs to follow the treaty. It just needs to be something that the PTO will accept.
Yeah, I was just going to say...
Because they won't accept it if it's not.
Right. So it's not like a constitutional legality of something.
Yeah.
It's a legality of what you are actually capable of doing according to that treaty.
Right.
Gotcha. Perfect.
Yeah.
Next question. So you use Adobe Illustrator and you use Adobe Photoshop, clearly for two different things. Do you ever use InDesign for anything?
Never.
You never use that at all?
Because what's the last time I used InDesign? It was when we were in school.
Probably high school.
Oh my God. So in high school, InDesign to me, and I haven't used it since then, so whoever knows about InDesign, please excuse my ignorance. It looks like just a page setup thing.
It is.
It looks like a way to set up pages,
yeah,
which you can do in Illustrator, and there's probably some sort of like page number population thing in InDesign.
Yeah. I have Adobe Creative Suite like CS5 on one of my computers, and so InDesign is definitely more typography based.
Oh, okay.
Illustrator's or illustration based, and then Photoshop is more imagery based.
Right. Sure.
So yeah, it's all strictly typography.
Okay.
I mean, you're talking about an entire mathematical point system.
I didn't know the point of InDesign. I was like, what does this do?
The way that even like Microsoft Word is set up these days, you can pretty much take an older version. I'm sure that newer versions of InDesign are much better than they used to be.
Sure.
But on CS5, at least, nowadays, Microsoft Word is just as accurate. It's kind of sad. It's probably a little bit harder to manipulate, but
Yeah.
unfortunately InDesign is only typography based. I was just curious if you guys had to do anything like that.
You actually brought up something that I just thought of, where you mentioned InDesign, and the one thing that Illustrator doesn't do is page number population. I have to Control-C, Command. I use Macs at work. Oh, jeez. But now I'm so used to Macs. I didn't like them at first, but now I use Macs and whatever. Command-C.
It's good for what you do. I mean, they're designing computers.
It's actually a lot easier because Command is on your thumb, and it's actually a lot easier. But at first I just wasn't used to it, and now I can't draw on my PC at home anymore. I'm just like, oh no, Control is over here. Oh, it's weird. But yeah, so Control-C, and then Control-V, a page number onto a different page. That's the only way to get it, because you can't populate. You can't say, okay, Illustrator, I'm going to put this page number here, now populate the rest of the pages. 1 out of 17, 2 out of 17, 17 out of 17. Mm-hmm. We use Microsoft Visio sometimes, and that at least does it.
Okay.
But we don't like to use Visio because of all sorts of, we do not like Visio.
I've never used Visio.
I don't even get me started on Visio. If anybody works in this industry, if anybody is in the office with me who works at Patent Sync, you know how much you hate Visio. Oh my god, it's the worst. But it at least populates page numbers. Illustrator can't do that. And I think InDesign does. Yeah, I don't know. You reminded me of that. InDesign probably does do that.
I think it does. I think I used it for photography class like junior year.
Yeah.
You used InDesign for photography class?
Yeah, because we were trying to put, at least I think it was InDesign, we were trying to put just this like packet of pictures together.
Oh, sure. So you're making like a page full of them.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I was
okay,
gonna
so
say
that
they
makes
take a
sense.
picture with InDesign.
No, there's nothing like
that
photo editing.
That definitely makes sense.
Well, if you click and drag your image into InDesign, then you can just put a title on top of it. That's about the extent of what you can do.
We put a title on it. Yeah.
Excuse me.
Yeah. So maybe I should use InDesign. No. It's not worth the learning a new program just for.
Yeah.
That would be the only thing, is to populate something with that. Because we have margins set up. We have like a file that has everything set up that we need. Like all the margins have commonly used thing. Like we can just click and drag figure 1 and then just retype it.
Yeah.
It has the font all set up. It has the size. Everything's legal. We have reference numbers pointing in every direction.
Mm-hmm.
That we can just click and drag onto things. And usually we have to edit them. Like if they're referencing something in the very middle of a figure, we have to really draw it like so it can go into the image.
Right.
Trying to explain this a little better. And I know that's not a good explanation.
No, you're doing fine. I'm understanding.
Better than I could.
You have like a so you've seen like a patent illustration, right? You've seen like a referencing with numbers and stuff. So you have reference numbers that go too far into stuff, and that would be the only time that you'd have to really edit the line to go through this maze of, because you don't want it to distract from what you're drawing. So you don't want to cover up stuff. You want it to go in a place that's like unobstructive. So sometimes you have to edit them so it points to certain things, but other than that, you just click and drag like numbers and you retype them like because you'll look at a drawn patent application, some hand-drawn crap, and they have it pointed at all these different things, and you have to copy that exactly where they point. You have to point to a surface of something, but if it points to the corner of a very small shape, it's a difference of a pixel. If it points to the corner instead of a side of like a very small shape connected to whatever, and you don't honor that, you're ruining the patent.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
It's not.
You got to be that
you
precise.
have to be very precise. Whatever they're referencing, we are told to make it absolutely exactly what it's pointing to, because otherwise you can change the patent.
Yeah.
Because if they're pointing to the tip of some element of a larger piece, rather than just slightly down the side of it, that's a different functionality, and we're not allowed to change that. Yeah. So we have to be very precise. But all that's set up.
Safe to say your job's pretty detail oriented.
Oh yeah, and I'm definitely a detail oriented person. So
it's
it's the job that I didn't know I needed.
Yeah. Yep.
A lot of the stuff I was doing when I was freelancing didn't really it was detail oriented in the wrong way. It was like they wanted different content, where these clients just want things to be exactly how they need to be.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not in a way that it's subjective. Like, oh, you had a different vision than I did because I'm really trying to make this certain theme here, which is what I got from freelancing a lot. This isn't like that. It's like, this is freaking wrong. Change it. And that's easy to understand.
Right.
And I'm just like, oh, I'm sorry, I screwed that up.
Yeah.
And this is from proofing. We don't get. I hope we don't get the clients to do that, and they do sometimes. Sometimes things slip through our proofreading process, unfortunately. But clients are we're very friendly. They're like, hey, can we make a few changes to this?
Right.
Because they'll give themselves a couple days of pad before they actually have to submit it.
Right.
They'll give themselves like a week or so pad.
Mm-hmm.
Some people give months pad. Like, oh, we don't have to do this for a while. So if you want to take extra time on it, please do. We get some clients that say that. But yeah, it'll go through proofing, and a team leader will say to change big structural things.
Mm-hmm.
But then we have an administrative that does all the legal stuff. They say, this is the wrong font. You need to move this expanded view to a new figure. You didn't move it. It's in the same figure. You have to, as an example I was using earlier.
Yeah.
You forgot to change this. You need to change this. This isn't legal.
Yeah.
That's stuff that admin does.
Okay.
But the team leaders, the Illustrator team leaders, and let's say about 60-70% of our office are illustrators and team leaders of illustrators, like senior illustrators. About 70% of our office, we're like the meat of the office. We would do the actual work, but the admin does a fantastic job proofreading. That hurts my eyes. I don't know how they do it. They look at they have to proof DNA. People, you can patent DNA.
Whoa.
And you can patent just lines and lines and lines and lines and lines of A, T, G, C, 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 G, G, just forever. And some of them are highlighted, some of them are underlined, some of them are bold, and they all mean different things. And just 10 pages of that. I don't know how they do it.
How long can some of these proofreading processes take? Like the DNA.
That definitely is one of the ones that takes the longest. Because then you get and then the next project they get is 2 flowcharts that takes them like 15 minutes to proof. And then that's right after and I'll go into the proofing office, and I'll hear one person reading, and I'll hear the other person next to them, A, T, C, G, and they're because you can't just look back and forth. You kill your eyes looking at 2 different screens.
Yeah, so it makes sense to have 2 people.
And so they're one person's focusing and the other person's proofing, and they do an incredible job over there.
So one person's calling it off while the other person is checking that what they put in is accurate.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And sometimes the illustrators will have to proof if it's too structural based.
Okay.
If it's not quite, things need to be organized in a legal way. No, it's kind of just like, it's just a really complicated drawing. There's no way of getting around it. It's just a really complicated drawing that you need a senior illustrator to understand.
Yeah.
You need somebody who knows how to see things in 3D when the source is really sloppy. They're like, what are they even trying to draw? Like, it's chicken scratch. They'll draw whatever. Apologies. Don't cut it. It's a crappy drawing, and we need somebody good to figure out how to do it. Apologies don't. I appreciate the apology, but sometimes I'm always asking my team leader, what am I looking at? And she looks at it like, whoa. Maybe we should send and we'll go all the way onto office. Do we have like 6 or 7 or 8 team leaders? We'll send it. What are you looking at? What do you think this is? I don't understand the shape. And he does the same thing. I don't know what this is. And eventually somebody will be like, oh, I think I know what they're trying to draw. And eventually we'll draw for that. So
okay.
And sometimes we'll get the illustrators
to do. It takes a few people. It
does take it, and that's where the teamwork comes in. It's definitely an interesting job.
So if you could walk me through the entire process,
sure,
start to finish.
Okay, start to finish. I get a case jacket. We keep them in like
Who gives you the case?
Admin does.
Okay.
We have a scheduling department too.
Okay.
And they scheduling is maybe like 5 or 10% of our office. Admin proofing, because I guess scheduling is considered admin too. Mm-hmm. The proofing section of admin is maybe like 20% of our office.
Okay.
And 70% of us are illustrators, and then the rest is our boss administration. And we have one part timer. I did the math wrong. Something like that.
Yeah.
I did the math wrong. So our scheduling department will say, I'm going to give you this case because you're a certain skill level that can do this kind of thing, and it takes this much time, and it requires this amount of attention to detail, which I know that you're better at getting nitpicky, while other people are better at just cranking them out.
Yeah.
Some of the people I work with are just so... They just miss so many things. Like, I try to get it right the first time so proofing doesn't have to...
Right.
But some of them just... Oh, no, they just make so many errors. But they get them done like 5 times quicker than I do.
Right.
So the kind of cases that they receive...
Is it really worth it, though? I mean, you're getting all this stuff wrong,
but
and you're cranking them out.
They're just boom, boom, boom. So they get it back into proofing, fix this. Okay, sure, boom. Really quickly,
and
send it back
just
in.
cycles through.
I mean, apparently, they're still working here, so they got to be doing something right. Like, it's not the work ethic that I agree with.
Yeah.
But it's good
I would
to
agree
have...
more with you. Just get it right.
Yeah, it's good to have different... And even I make plenty of mistakes. There's so many things that you could get wrong.
With as much detail as the work you have to do has,
yeah.
Missing one thing.
And again, I'm a very slow worker, though. I'm pretty slow at making... And I'm trying to get good at it. I'm trying to speed up because we have like this efficiency thing where we do have like everybody has a number, and it gets kind of frustrating where your number is low. But I'm not getting like berated for it. My boss doesn't go, "Hey, your numbers are bad." Like, no, my boss is really nice, but we do have them just so we can at least make sure we don't have to fire anybody who's sitting there just like playing Halo while they're like, So
playing some GTA.
Yeah. And like sometimes I gotta take a break. Sometimes I'll just watch. Sometimes I'll watch a podcast. Sometimes I'll just like watch freaking Pokemon videos or something. I don't know. So we have all these different skill sets, and so we'd get different projects depending on that.
Okay.
So
scheduling gives you the project?
Yeah, and scheduling's really good at I don't know, because that's another thing. Like, I'm an illustrator. I can't schedule. I don't have a freaking schedule. I don't know what I'm doing with my life. So I just draw things. So and they're fantastic. So they'll give the very hard design cases to the seniors, and sometimes they'll give us hard design cases. Sometimes and I say us as in I'm kind of like borderline intermediate. I think I'm still new. I worked here a year. Some people are newer than me. They joined in December, and I was actually managing a case that they were helping me on. I was like, oh, I get to be a little boss.
Nice.
Really, I get to be a little bossy pants for these guys. So I was like teaching them how to do. Oh, like you missed this. Next time, make sure you like. Oh, it feels nice. So like everybody. But no, usually I'm the one being taught by the seniors, and sometimes I'll get hard design cases that require, a 3D mind. That I was explaining earlier. Sometimes it's really, really complicated, but it's only a couple figures. I'll get a small, difficult case that I will have to ask my seniors, how do I do this? I don't have or what's a strategy to do this? Or I think I'm doing this slowly. My numbers are suffering from this. Am I missing a tool? My team leader would be like, oh, did you know you can hold Alt while you're moving an item? And not only are you moving it, but you're copying it. I was like, oh, I just learned that a couple weeks ago. Like, oh, cool, you can hold Alt while you're doing this. And that sped me up by like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And like over time, you learn stuff. So every once in a while, they'll give us like a hard case, but usually they'll keep it within our means. They'll give the easier guys, they'll give the newer guys the easier stuff. They'll give them the schematics that are just like 2-dimensional, whatever. And so that's our scheduling department. Anyway. Start to finish. So I get a project like that.
Yeah,
we're going on tangents.
Oh, wow.
These are fun tangents. So I get a project that is given to me by their criteria.
Okay.
I look at it, and first thing I do is so I get it physically just in case. But usually I'll look at the case on our server digitally. I'll find what the number is 88234.
Okay.
Every case has a number.
Yeah.
So I look on the server and I look on the folder that has that number, and in that folder are a couple folders: client email, source material. Actually, that's it. And then whatever the client says, whatever the source is, and then maybe like special instructions or something. Like, okay, this is a weird client. Make sure you do this for him because he's really picky.
Yeah. Like any. So you have
like anybody who commissions anything. Some people are just really freaking picky.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
which more power to him because I'm the same way. Like I understand how it is. But
if you have something that wants to be invented, you're going to be picky.
Oh yeah, it's easy to complain until you realize this is their baby. They're making something that you gotta honor what they're making.
Right.
So I definitely get it. So yeah, and then I look at the email and best case scenario. Hi, I'm filing figures 1 through 10 to submit to whatever. Okay, we know where you're doing it. The only information I need is figures 1 through 10. Those are the ones I'm redrawing. No special instructions, no nothing. Easy. Give me the source material. Okay, it's easy to understand. Trace it. Boom. It's out. It's not out. Okay, I'll finish the process.
Okay. I was gonna say so what happens when you're done doing
and
that?
this is the simplest thing that I can imagine is a case that has no special instructions. That's just draw these for me. Okay, cool.
Okay.
I'm done drawing the case. Let's say let's say they estimated 4 hours.
Mm-hmm.
I took 4.5 hours because I'm a little slow.
Mm-hmm.
But I sent it into proofing, and they found a small handful of errors. I send it back. I missed a typo. This shape is wrong. I have to fix this shape. I didn't honor what they were doing. And then I forgot to put page numbering in. Add the page numbering. Send it back into proofing. Mm-hmm. They send it back. No changes found. Give it back. No changes found. Good. I got it right on my first proofing attempt.
Yeah.
And then it's ready to email. So I'll walk the case jacket. Again, we don't really look at the case jacket much. It's most to you have it, and you kind of can put that in your brain and say, okay, this is the ball's in my court now.
Yeah.
Very rarely will we open it up and be
it's like physical responsibility.
Yes, exactly. It helps you think about it. And sometimes I do use it. Sometimes I open it up and say, okay, I want the physical version of this figure so I can look at it as I'm drawing. Sometimes I'll do that if it gets a little too weird.
Yeah.
Or if my eyes are bugging out and I don't feel like looking at the screen. But yeah, I send it to proofing, blah, 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 back and forth, fix this, okay, proof this, fix this, proof this, fix this. 3 rounds of proofing minimum.
Okay.
Picky clients get 5.
Wow.
Some clients
minimum.
get 6.
So, okay.
3 proofings minimum. And then you send it out. Somebody, and we use a work Skype, and somebody in admin will be like, anybody really, everybody in admin does everything.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody in proofing does everything. You can proof something, you can email something, you can give a special request to something,
mm-hmm.
you could tell an illustrator you're doing something wrong. They're all kind of, we all work together. It's kind of loose, but it's a good system. So one of them will say, hey, this is ready to email. Can you send it over to me? Sure. I'll send it over to them. The case is out. Oh, thank you. Thanks for the good turnaround time. You did an excellent job on the drawings. One minor tweak. Can you change this wording in Figure 3? And we'll send it back, and we have a week to do that. And we don't really charge them for stupid stuff like that. Like, oh yeah, we made a typo. That's our fault. Whatever. And we send it back, and they're usually cool about it.
Yeah.
Or sometimes it's their fault. Which we don't berate them for it, because and that's another thing. One of our departments does the emailing. The admin does the emailing, and I always tell this one girl who does the email, make sure you tell them I hate them and I don't want them to send their crap anymore, and they're really picky. And she's like, I'll make sure that I tell them that. And of course she doesn't, but it's good to have a middleman to where I get to take out my anger.
Yeah, that's your venting station.
Yeah, but it helps me draw. And then she finds it funny. She's like, oh yeah, I really would. You want to tell them that? And then I look at the email she sends. Hey, thanks, we fixed your things. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. All right, good. I'm glad you know how to do that because I don't know how to talk to. That's why I stopped freelancing.
Yeah.
But that's why I do what I do instead of that. So. No, everybody's great. So, and that's the process of the simplest case imaginable.
Okay.
Draw it, put it in proofing, send it out.
Cool.
And the worst case is, let me think of the worst case possible. 80-hour estimate.
Mm-hmm.
That just sounds painful.
I know.
It's due in 2 days.
What?
And we can do this, and we actually revel in doing this. We allow for rush cases. We say.
Bring it on.
With an extra fee, we can do a rush case.
Yeah.
You can tell us to do something today. And we can do it because all we have to do is, and it's a kind of a pain in the ass for scheduling.
Yeah.
But they just have to say, crap. Okay, everybody drop what you're doing. This is due tonight. COB, close of business. This is due at close of business.
Yep.
Which is, as long as they get it, which means as long as they get it tomorrow morning, they're fine.
Yeah.
Which we close at 6, but there's a late shift. Some people stay until 7. Some people, one time we stayed until 10. Which I don't mind because I come in late anyway. I like staying up late. I don't really care about staying for late shift.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of people are just like, I really need to go. Can somebody cover my late shift? And I usually pick that up for people. Anyway, you get a case like that where it's due that day. It's, okay, nobody's going to ask that day for 80-hour case. I would say that day,
Yes.
30-hour case, worst case scenario, which still sounds bad, but scheduling will say, okay, we need to put 6 people on this immediately.
Yeah.
You manage it. You're all the helpers. Whoever the manager is, you're the illustrator. I don't know how you do it. You get to decide who does what figures.
Yeah.
So all the administration does is, we need this amount of people on this case because it's due in this amount of time.
Yep.
The illustrators are the people who say, okay, crap, we have this due today. We have this picky client that requires that we do a certain, we have case sensitivity in certain scenarios. They use this exact font, so we're not allowed to use ours. Whenever you do subscript, don't make it the same height. You have to make it a little smaller. You know, that subscript.
Yeah.
Or like superscript.
Yeah.
So just like little stupid things like that. We have a firm that has just a list of, oh, you have this, here's what you do, here's what you don't do. Just this huge list of just the pickiest client we ever have. Another thing, this is an important client. This is an important person who's doing this. We have to make sure we do 5 proofings because we can't lose face in front of these guys.
Right.
Because they pay us a lot of money. They're consistent customers.
Mm-hmm.
And so worst case scenario is you get all these little things that you have to, oh, here's another worst case scenario. India, we outsource to India.
Really?
And they do, sometimes, they do cases, but they don't do as good of a job on them because I don't think they are trained as much as us. And they send them back, and there's always just a bunch of stuff wrong with it. But I don't think they get paid as much. So we make a profit off of having them in our company.
Yeah.
So they get the base drawings done, and then you don't really have to be a senior to fix what they make. Like, I can fix it. I can be like, okay, I know this is wrong.
Yeah.
It's mostly legal stuff. Like, they know how to draw. They know how to make designs and stuff, but they mess up on the legal stuff because they don't speak English.
Mm-hmm.
So they'll copy the text, but they won't do a certain thing case sensitive. Like, okay, so for example, when you do milliliters, you have to make that case sensitive, lowercase m, capital L.
Right.
And they don't understand that,
Okay.
as an example.
Okay.
So we have to fix a lot of India stuff like that.
Yeah, I can see that being a
It's
major language
a pain in the
barrier.
ass.
Yeah.
It's a pain in the ass for us, but we're trying to get it better for them. We're trying to get the system better.
Right.
And we're constantly growing. So yeah, worst case scenario is that bad client. Crap. Why did we give this important client's case to India? We screwed up. We got to stop doing that. Also, it was already objected to by the Patent Cooperation Treaty. And so all of these things put together, you can make the most confusing case where I come
Yeah.
over and I get a beer with all my friends and I'm just like, work today sucked. That's a bad day of work for me. It's all of those things put together in one big stupid case where everybody's just running around like chickens with their heads cut off. And that's the worst case scenario. Is
Yeah.
all of these like random stupid legal things happening and like the worst.
And that seems like that would be the biggest hindrance is in your job.
It's
would
rare.
be-
But it happens.
rare when it happens.
It's rare when it happens, but I need to know how to deal with it, and I do.
Right. It's hectic when
Yeah.
it happens because if one thing goes wrong, it's all going to go wrong.
Yep.
Yeah.
You got to get everyone on the same page.
Yeah.
And it reminded me of another thing. You get figures that have already been drawn in a previous case that we did for that client.
Mhm.
Like this is kind of I guess a sequel to their case. This is the same thing, but we added a different part to it, and it works in this way. Can you change the flow charts?
Yeah.
can you draw this part? Because it'll usually be a physical thing and some flowcharts.
Okay.
It's a mix of everything. Like a single case has a bunch of different things in it. Sometimes, usually, and so sometimes these figures have already been drawn before, and I'd like to say that I tell them that because I'm pretty sure that I do. I tell my people who are helping me that they've already been drawn. Just go to this case number. I gave you the case number and copy and paste them.
Mm-hmm.
And I come back like, hey, you placed those, right? Oh, I'm still working on figure 1. No, you're not. All you had to do is place it. You've taken 2 hours to place a figure. Oh, I didn't know we already had it. I'm pretty sure I told you. We already drew this and it already exists. And sometimes you forget to do it. Sometimes they don't listen.
Yeah.
And that's another thing that can get really bad is you have to communicate.
Yeah.
That's key for any.
Sure.
Me,
It's key for any job. You gotta communicate.
At my work, what I do, if somebody doesn't communicate and we miss even one little bit of detail, it doesn't matter if it's by phone, in person, email, physically written. I mean, we have stacks of paperwork that are just miles long.
Yeah.
Like physically miles long if you stretch them out long enough.
Wow.
And just for one small little project, if you miss one little note or somebody skips over it, the project's fucked.
What do you do?
I can't actually say.
Oh, okay.
I
was going to say we should do a podcast about that.
It's
I
a
guess
federal
not.
government position, and I work in astrophysics, but I'll tell you off camera.
Oh, no, yeah, that's you definitely do not want to screw something up for that.
Nope.
I can have a guess as to what you mean.
I'll tell you.
Yeah.
Brady, do you have anything?
No.
Okay.
But no, honestly, I learned a hell of a lot.
Yeah.
A hell of a lot about just all of it. Graphic design to what you do with pattern illustration.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
So-
back in high school, I mean, I became, as Eric calls, the Photoshop guru.
Oh, yeah. That's when I did not like Photoshop.
Oh,
He couldn't stand Photoshop, and I was excelling
I
at
don't
it.
like Photoshop.
And then the
And-
opposite for you with Illustrator.
I couldn't fucking figure out Illustrator at all, and he's sitting here making, like, artwork with it.
I was just so... Because once you get into something, you just get into it.
yeah.
And
Right.
we're both supposed to learn both of these programs, but instead we both learned one or the other.
Yeah.
And he was just like, no, why would I use Illustrator when I could use Photoshop? And I was like,
Yeah.
why could I use Photoshop when I could use Illustrator? And, oh my god, we used to make fun of each other so much. Like, why don't you go to your stupid Photoshop and you can't do this in Photoshop?
We were on each other's case all the
Oh
time
my god,
about
it's
it.
so funny.
It's like chocolate versus peanut butter.
Yep.
Literally.
Yeah.
Literally. Do you remember our final high school senior project where we made these
Yep.
comic strips and we implemented both Illustrator and Photoshop?
We made
into
something
it?
Okay,
called
that sounds
Photoshop.
cool.
We made Photoshop Wars.
Yeah.
Where it was
That
a
sounds
comic
cool,
strip where we both had sort of superpowers.
Mm-hmm.
I had control of all of Illustrator's functions, and he had control of all of Photoshop's functions. So I would shoot like vector arrows at him, and I would grab him and copy and delete him try to delete him out of the scene. But he would try to rasterize me, which would make my vectors like that doesn't make sense. Why would you rasterize it? I mean, you can, but
You can. It wouldn't do anything.
and he would like throw Photoshop filters on me, like you aren't ready for my secret weapon, and then the whole screen would turn into a filter, and I would just decompose. It was the dorkiest thing ever, but it was so funny.
That actually sounds pretty interesting.
And
Our teacher loved it.
Yeah.
She was actually really impressed by it. She
Yeah.
was like,
It was
"You guys
really
actually did
clever."
it." Yeah.
What class was this?
So we went to Hartford Technical High
a
School.
tech school.
And so we took 4 years of graphic design, graphic communications.
It was kind of like a college major, except it wasn't as in depth. Like college goes a lot more into one
Right,
thing.
right.
This was like quasi college. We still had like all of the general studies and stuff.
When we graduated, on top of our high school diploma, we were also awarded with a 4-year certification in graphic communications.
Yeah. Mhm.
That's something that we got along with
Right.
it. But that was our final project.
Well, I bet
We were
I
having
bet a
Illustrator
graphics teacher.
I didn't even use it. I did freelance for a little bit. Until now. I finally said, "Hey, I used to do this in high school, like 7 years ago. I can still get a job, right? I've been using the program." But yeah, one of my favorite comic strips that you made most of them, is it was we were having clone battles.
Yes.
And I was making vector clones
Yeah.
that are crisp. And you were making Photoshop clones, and I remember the idea was when you copied yourself in Photoshop, you still had like all of these artifacts around you, and it's like, oh yeah, well I'm a crisp, clean vector. What are you gonna do about that? It was like superhero battles. Oh, it was great. I just had a bunch of clones of me, just like whoa!
Oh yes.
Oh, it was so funny.
Oh my gosh.
We were the biggest dorks.
I wish I still had those. Do you think Shiv has them?
Oh my god, I wonder. They were all on our server.
Yeah.
I wonder if she kept them.
That would be amazing. I'm gonna have to go visit her and be like, Shiv, give me those.
Yeah, I don't want to ask her and her to say no, just for us to be like, oh. It's just like we have to walk away.
After 8 years, go back.
I can't believe
you, Shiv. No, I deleted those when you guys graduated. Fuck you, then. Sheesh. Okay, so kind of the last question. Maybe it'll lead into something else.
Mm-hmm.
So you absolutely love what you do. I can tell that you do just by talking about it. You definitely know your job well. Do you see this going anywhere else? Are you comfortable with where you're at? Is there something else you might dream of doing?
So my dream is to go indie in game design. I actually have a college degree in game design. I have a bachelor's. And
Bachelor's in game design.
Yep. And
what school was that from?
UB, University of Baltimore.
Oh, nice.
Oh, nice.
It was a good program. I met a lot of cool people. I met a lot of really the awesome thing about, and of course I haven't studied anything else, so this is relative.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really have much relativity to speak upon this, but from what I can glean from college, when you study art, you have a lot of people with different perspectives on how to do the same thing, and that to me was magical. It was great. Is you have all these different teachers that thought of the same thing in a different way.
Yeah.
It's really cool, and it's not just theory. I actually had very little design theory. I thought it would be mostly theory. We learned about game art. We learned about how to use programs. We learned about how to use 3ds Max to make 3D models, which I was not very good at. I'm really good at the 2D stuff. Like I can think of 3D, but I don't like using that program. Ugh, it's just weird.
Simpleton.
Yeah. Yeah, so we do all this stuff. We did we had to learn web design for it. You can do like
yeah. I remember
Flash
taking that in
games.
college. Ugh.
And it was so the name of the degree is Simulation and Digital Entertainment, which right after I graduated, they changed the name of the major to game design. I was like, oh great,
Wow.
Now my major with the same exact education as people from is called Simulation and Digital Entertainment, which is kind of more of a mouthful than it needs to be.
Yeah.
Even though you can use it to say, you can like some army simulations, which is one of the biggest things for it. One of the biggest applications for simulation is they're not even games. So maybe that's kind of a misnomer calling it game design. But yeah, now my diploma has some big old lengthy title. Everybody else is just saying game design. I'm just like, all right. So
I mean, I guess you kind of won out of that one.
yeah, maybe. So it was. That's definitely what I want to do.
I just imagine this employer looking at your resume and somebody else's. You took the same exact freaking classes, and he looks at yours and he's like, nice game design.
What is this?
Right. This posh.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the first step to that would have been to be a tester, because it was really hard for me to look.
I've tried getting into that.
It's fun but stressful because they realize anybody could test a game, so they just like work you to death apparently.
Yeah.
There's crunch time, like unpaid overtime.
Yeah,
Jeez.
I've heard.
Which is technically illegal to have unpaid overtime, but they're just like, oh, it's it's overtime, so it's not really real. But you know, can you just stay a little bit anyway?
Right.
You're a tester. Come on,
It's
it's
like
fun.
off the record.
Yeah,
overtime.
exactly.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
apparently that's how the industry is. Apparently it's just really gruesome.
Oh, that's crazy.
And so that's one of the reasons I stopped. And also, I didn't really want to be a tester. I was trying to get into game art right off the bat,
right.
which I'm told was a mistake. I really wanted to be a user interface designer, which is a lot of what people don't really like think of at first. Like, oh, I want to be the one who makes the characters. I want to make the story. I want to make the game world. I really like making buttons, as weird as it sounds, because that's my nitpickiness coming in. I really want to have one single thing that just looks awesome, and just a really clean interface to use. I just love user experience, UX designer, user experience designer. I could be a UX designer in the future, absolutely.
That's cool.
And don't get me wrong, I've made all my own OC, original content, my own characters, my own world. I am making my own game after all.
Are you still working on the same one?
Yep.
Are you really?
Yeah, but I keep going on hiatuses.
Yeah.
And I've been really focusing on work, but every once in a while I'll come back and be like, this is a great idea, I'm going to put it in my game. So I'm making a platform in my free time.
Cool.
And I have all these characters, I have like this world set up, and you know, anybody can do that. Everybody has ideas. And I guess to anybody who wants to get into game design who's listening, especially if you're young, anybody can have ideas. Go freaking do it. Nobody wants to do it. Everybody just wants to say that they're going to do it. Go do it. Please go do it. Nobody wants to do it. Everybody just wants to think about it.
Great life advice right there.
Yeah, that's for anything. It's not even just for game design. It's for anything. And so I tried to get into art and say, with that mindset, like, not a lot of people want to do UX. Making buttons, making user interfaces for games, which are everywhere. Start looking at that. Next time you play a game, look at the interface for Skyrim. I actually don't like Skyrim's like I don't like how the whole scrolling through items thing. Like, to me, that's a bad interface. Pokemon's has a great interface. A lot of MMOs, you can learn a lot from their interface. They have a lot of information squeezed onto one screen.
Yep.
And sometimes that gets overwhelming, which is a criticism of some people. But yeah, user interface is just so interesting to me. Next time you play a game, try to like look at it. Try to say like,
I'm an
there's an
avid
artist
gamer.
that does this. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And so I was thinking, and when I was looking at jobs, I'm finding my suspicions were kind of more or less correct, because a lot of open positions were just that. The type of open art positions are user interface. People don't think to do that.
Yeah.
But I love it. I think it's great. I love putting a lot of effort into things.
You enjoy polishing the nitty-gritty.
Yes.
Yeah.
I just want a great, just seamless experience. I don't like, because I hate going through stupid menus. I hate this. What is this? What is it? Why do I have to? Oh my God. Super Smash Bros. 4. Their menu is terrible. Why is it Smash and then games and more? Everything is in its own stupid button. If you've ever played Smash 4, it's the worst. Anyway. And that kind of stuff. So, but they didn't accept me into that job when I applied to a couple of them. A lot of them just didn't even respond. But the one that did respond, they said, you're not up to snuff. And and I appreciate them for it. I wish more people would tell them why they weren't accepted. And they said
like, what makes me underqualified?
Your style doesn't agree with ours. It's not on the same page.
Okay.
Your style isn't similar enough to ours, and you haven't shown in your online portfolio, that you can do that. And I look at my portfolio, and at first I was really sad. I was just like really depressed, like, oh, I didn't get a job. I deserve this job. I'm so good at art or whatever. And I looked at my portfolio, and I was like, you know what? He's right. I could do so much better. This is stuff from a year ago. Why didn't I update my portfolio? And maybe that could have been what I was doing, but I could definitely do that as a job. I could do any sort of like game art as a job. Yeah, I would say that's what I would want to do in my future. But
would you have to get any kind of further education for that, do you think?
I don't think so.
No?
I would just have to show real progress in a real project on what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Because I don't think you can get like a master's in game design. I mean, you probably can. I think you can get a master's in anything.
I'm pretty sure.
I guess you can.
It's just it's at that point like
I wouldn't want to.
Worth it?
I wouldn't want to
because
I'm not going to school anymore.
Yeah,
I'm done with school.
Thinking on a graphic design standpoint, if somebody has most graphic designers have their bachelor's. If you have a master's in graphic design, you've done too much. You're way too trying.
I would agree.
Like very few people need a master's. The job qualifications don't call for it.
Yeah, I think if I polished my art enough on my own terms, which is something that I can do on my own terms, just if I could get more practice in, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's been 8 years since we graduated, and I still use Photoshop daily.
Yeah, I could try to jump back in.
Photoshop guru is alive and strong.
I'm going to stay in this job for a while, though. I'm going to get more Illustrator experience under my belt. Get more work experience under my belt. This is my first office job.
Oh yeah,
for the first year.
Yeah,
I was at McDonald's, then Planet Fitness for a little bit.
Yep.
This was my first office job. This is my first serious job. So
be fortunate you don't work for Leslie's.
Yeah, I hear a lot from this place you guys work at. I hear a lot of from us.
Anyway,
there are some downsides to office jobs too. It gets to your head. You got to get up and take a walk. It's like, oh no, I have to walk. Oh, you got a cushy desk job, but no, it really does mess with your head. I get headaches. Yeah. It's like the same thing as some people kind of dismissing mental health as an issue over physical health, just because you can't see it, just because you can't understand it as readily. But no, it gets stressful as hell sometimes. You gotta just like
you will go.
You want to finish this, but you have to get up. You have to go. And sometimes I'm just like, I have to get this into proofing, but I'm so fucking hungry. But if I eat for 30 minutes and just chill, this case is sitting here doing nothing. It's not going through its cycle as it should be for a whole 30 minutes, which is a lot of time.
He sounds like me at work.
It's a lot of time, and you're trying to do this balancing act, and that is stressful.
Yeah.
So there's definitely a different kind of
it's just
evil in an office job.
Yeah, and it's just also the stress of constantly staring at that screen, and you know whatever program you're using, you're probably using that one program or maybe like splicing it between one other all day long. Yeah. Everything starts to fade together, your vision goes blurry.
Oh my god. The first month I worked here, I had nightmares about two-dimensional black and white everything. My mind was in Illustrator for the entire dream. I kept redrawing the same shape 200 times.
Oh man!
Before I woke up, and I've never been so glad I was awake.
Oh,
I was like,
man.
Oh Jesus! It's because it's something along the lines of I know you do philosophy. Like dreams are meant to kind of like play through what you're preparing to do in waking life, and that to me is really interesting. I really like kind of sleep science, because who knows, man. But like whatever I was dreaming about, like I was really preparing to get back into work. And did it help me? I mean, sure. I mean, I'm doing a good job now, but like that was the most stressful month. Is just like all I saw was lines on a canvas. Oh, I was redrawing the same thing over and over again. Like the dreams didn't have characters. It was just black and white. It didn't have characters. It didn't have a plot. It just had motions. It had skills that my brain was trying to drill into my head because it knew that I was going to keep doing this. I knew that this was my life for a while, and I'm fine now. But it was bad, man. It was bad.
I was experiencing stuff like that when I first started my job because I started that not long ago, and that shit was stressing me out too.
Oh yeah,
I'm sitting there thinking that I'm flying through space. I'm like, oh my god. I can't breathe, apparently.
Yeah, and like it was easier. It was easier at McDonald's where I would dream I'm behind the counter. At least there's people in your dream,
right?
At least you're doing something active. But this was the worst dream. Oh, it was
probably felt like you were trapped.
I was trapped. I couldn't get out.
Yeah.
Oh, it was the worst.
Yeah, and your brain's just going fucking lies.
Like, yeah. Oh man. Yeah.
Well, do you have anything? No?
No, not really.
I have one thing to end it on then.
Okay.
Yeah.
I want to tell you guys the craziest thing that we have made. And I didn't do it, but this was one of my seniors' favorite story to tell when I first joined.
Okay.
The only reason I can share this particular thing is because it happened like 5 years ago. This was
I
something
was
that...
just going to ask.
This is definitely common knowledge now. I tried to Google it, though, and this particular thing didn't show up, which isn't really out of the realm of possibilities. Sometimes, most of the time, an invention doesn't really catch on or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But she found this hilarious. She had to draw a vodka bottle that was shaped like a dick and balls. And she showed me this. She had a favorites folder.
Oh my god!
Yeah, she had a favorites folder that she shows to every new person, and she says, and when she was training us for the first like month or so, she gave us like the run through, like making sure we were not like just total fucks. Like okay, you can work here, good. You at least know how to use Illustrator. You seem easy enough to communicate with. Blah blah blah. And like after a week or so, they're like, all right, I'm gonna show you my favorites folder, and this thing looked hilarious. It was a full page, and she had to draw it from every angle. And every angle she showed, all of the trainees just cracked up even more. It was like at first it was just like a front view. It was like, oh, I kind of get it. And then she showed the isometric, like, whoa, it's literally a dick and balls, but you can drink out of it.
Oh my god!
Out of the tip of the dick. And I was like, that is the most absurd thing I've ever seen. Yeah.
Oh my god!
And some of the other favorites.
Oh shit.
Some of the other favorites were just like really cool. Like some of them are like, one time she's like, and she's kind of like a girly girl. She's like, one time I had to make, this is my favorite thing I made. I had to make a little gingerbread house, and I put a little gingerbread man here. Oh, and it's so cute, isn't it? Look at her. And it's like, and it was funny. So yeah, the favorites folder was fun.
I'm surprised they put her on that project.
And I think that's what admin does sometimes. They
just to mess with them?
They give, yes. Admin will say, like, they don't really pick favorites, but, because one time I had to do, like, a jewelry thing, which doesn't, like, it was a little weird, but, I don't know.
At least you didn't design the bra.
Yeah, I mean, that would have been a little... See, but the thing is, though, even with that, I zoom in so much that sometimes I forget what I'm even drawing until I zoom out. I'm just like, okay, lines, I'm drawing the seam of whatever this is, and now it connects. Oh, that's right, I'm drawing a bra. Which, no, I've never drawn a bra, but that's how my mind works when I'm drawing something.
Yeah.
I'm just like, I'm focusing on the lines, and then I zoom out, like, okay, good. It looks like what it was supposed to.
It's the same thing you did in high school. I saw you, like, your entire
I get very zoomed
screen
in.
was just one line. Then you zoom out, there's your... full image.
Yeah, and I overheard one of the seniors talking to the other seniors. We have about a 50-50 guy and girl work here. These two seniors were girls, and she was talking over the cubicle. Like, oh my God, you need to look at this. Look at the case number. And she said the case number. Look at this thing that I had to draw. And she's just like, okay, hold on. What? Oh my God, it's adorable! So I looked up the case number.
Yeah.
Because I kind of overheard them.
Yeah.
I looked up the case number to see what they're talking about. Okay, what she drew was, and this is recent, so I can't get too specific about it. But basically, it was kind of a Jack in the Box with like a little dog. Okay. And it was like figure one. It was just a box. I was just like, it's a box. I don't get it. And then I scrolled to the next page, and a little dog comes out, and it's like, and it was like the cutest thing we've ever seen. And I'm just like, okay, I see why they're over there. They're like, oh, it was so adorable. Oh my God. And it's just like,
I was sitting over at my desk, like, it's adorable.
Yeah. But and then yeah, it's fun, and then the worst is like you'll overhear somebody saying, "Look at this case that I'm doing. This is the worst thing I've ever done." And this is the worst thing that I ever had to do in this job. And I look at this case, and it's just this incredibly detailed, like mesh. Like, what? I don't know what it is. It's just this mesh, whatever the hell, that you put inside of something. Yeah. In layers and layers and layers of mesh, and it consists of just like thousands and thousands of lines, just in like a grid. and you have to, and there's no CAD that you can scan, because this is something that if a CAD scan, oh, that is just it's praise to the heavens that you get a CAD for something like that, because for something that complicated, they usually send us CAD, but they didn't send us CAD for this, so we had to trace every fucking line. Ooh. And it was the worst. And I was just like, I'm glad I'm not drawing that. See ya. And it's just, God damn it. So yeah, it's fun sometimes. We get all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's my job. That is my job.
That sounds so cool.
It's interesting. It's not exactly what I wanted to do, but I got into it and realized I'm doing something meaningful. I'm using my skills for something that people need.
Yeah.
And it's something that's in demand, evidently.
I can certainly see that it's in demand.
Everybody's inventing stuff.
There are always going to be inventions.
Oh, yeah.
And I can definitely see how you're helping people, because you're helping the person that's getting the invention, and then that invention's going to help people.
Yeah. Yep.
So, yeah.
It's a satisfying job knowing that.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
By any chance, is your building like publicly open? Would I be able to come visit and just like kind of not shadow, but just get a preview of it?
Probably not. The only the only person that's allowed in that doesn't work with us is one of my coworkers' babies. We're like, uh-oh, he's gonna start sharing information about case number blah blah blah. If you're gonna walk in the office, you better sign the NDA. Like, no, this is a baby. But no, I don't think we're allowed to allow people in.
Yeah, I was curious, because there are inventions that you can't discuss.
Yeah,
and I'm sure that's
all of them we're not allowed to. Every single one of them.
And that's probably so that nobody else takes that idea. Yeah, I figured.
Makes sense.
Right.
All right. Well, so much for that idea.
Yeah. Get out of here. Just stay working your own job. No. Right. Yeah, I wish you could. It's and sometimes I think about that too when I'm working. I'm just like, oh my god, I really want somebody to see this, because this is so epic what I'm doing right here. This is such a cool setup.
It's the
and
same
sometimes
way
I feel really clever about what I did. Like, that was awesome. I want to do that again next time. That was awesome. I just taught myself something. But yeah.
At my work all the time, I'm always like, oh my god, if only I could show this to anybody else. I would just, I want to share something so badly.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if you walk in my building,
Too bad.
You're probably going to federal prison.
Oh man.
But yeah, so I think we'll call it an episode there.
Sure. Wonder how long that was.
Probably quite a while.
Pretty lengthy.
I mean, it was a cesspool of information.
That was good.
It was absolutely fantastic. So, Eric, thank you so much for coming.
Yeah.
I greatly appreciate it.
Thank you guys. Thank you for having me.
We're going to invite you back, definitely.
I don't know if I have anything more interesting than that to talk about, because I feel like anybody can talk about video games, which is the other thing that I do.
I do want to get into that with you.
I can talk your ear off about Pokemon.
Oh. Let me join in on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Should I show him my shirt after this episode?
Yeah.
Okay. I think I think I need to do that.
I think you wore it in one of the episodes, right?
Yeah, I did.
Episode 2?
Yeah.
All right. Well, sweet. Yeah, it was good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you for showing up. Mm-hmm. So, thank you guys all so much for watching.
See you next time, everyone.
Yeah.
See you later.
See you in the next one.